Hey, everybody. Welcome to the last IT podcast in the world where we talk about corporate IT, business leadership, the news, and banter, whatever we want to talk about. So I'm David. He's Darrick. Hi, Darrick. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah,
Celebrating the Rangers championship. And
Darrick's in Texas. He's wearing a Washington Nationals hat.
yeah, the Rangers hat hasn't come in yet.
So you're a bandwagon fan.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Hey, the Rangers won the World Series.
Yeah,
Quick, order a hat.
I think my first Rangers hat should be.
Yeah, and I'm wallowing and bathing in all the putridness that is the Colorado Rockies
Mhm.
by wearing their hat, just so I remember the bitterness of what it feels like not to win a World Series, but instead to be a farm team for all the other major league teams.
Right. And
So
to
I'm
see
just
two teams that lost 90 plus games within the last 2 years figure it out, make it better, and go to the World Series.
I have no hope of that happening to
No.
the Colorado Rockies, but I appreciate you pulling me out of the miry pit, trying to bring me in opposite. Okay, so that's the podcast. It's my Colorado Rockies hat. It's the alternate hat. It's not the actual uniform hat, but baseball themed in honor of the World Series, which recently completed. Good for the Texas. I'm happy for all the Texas Ranger fans. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So you and I were talking about like tools or implements or things that we've had to use with our hands or machines that we would rather not encounter again. Bad tools. And I've got mine, but do you want to go first and then I'll finish?
Yeah, so growing up on a farm, we used shovels a lot. Shovels are a big part of that, and shovels in themselves are not bad. The shovel's not the bad tool, but there's two kinds of shovels. There's the scoop shaped shovel for when
Grain
dirt's
shovel?
soft and malleable, standard shovel. When you can use that one, life's pretty good. But then there's this other shovel that weighs about 6 pounds more. This very very thick metal flat for when the dirt is really really hard, and you're going to
Mm.
have to sort of chisel your way through it. And when that shovel comes out, it's going to be a bad day.
Does that particular shovel have a name? Is it
It it might. I don't know of it. I don't know of it. I don't want to research it.
you've
Yeah.
put it out of your mind.
As I've moved on from that shovel. Yeah.
So the big, heavy, clod-busting shovel you
Yeah.
would like to forget forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So my tool I bought and used this summer. I was helping my son with a fencing project, and a fence had blown over. We had to replace the fence posts, wooden fence posts, which means you have to remove the concrete from 3 to 4 foot deep holes. And there is no good way to do that unless you buy, this is the name of the tool, a San Angelo bar. And there will be a very few unfortunate souls listening to this podcast that know what a San Angelo bar is. You can find them at Lowe's or Home Depot in the sledgehammer section. They're not a sledgehammer. They are a 5 to 6 foot tall bar that's as big as a shovel handle. They weigh 16 to 18 pounds. On one end is a point like a pencil. On one end is a chisel like a chisel. And its job in life is for you to raise it up and down over and over and jam it into concrete or stone to hopefully induce a crack, and then from a crack to induce a split, and then a break, and then you can pull the concrete out by your hands. And
Oof.
yeah, it is a bad tool. And let me tell you how I connect this with IT. As I was doing this, as you know, these are the hands of an IT professional, not a concrete block remover. I've got blisters on my hands. My shoulders are sorer than they've ever been. I'm doing this for several days in a row, and I'm exhausted. And I thought to myself, you know what? About 100 years ago, this was someone's entire career.
Mm-hmm.
They ran home one day and said, "Hey, Ma, I got the San Angelo bar job down at the mine, and I'm going to be running a San Angelo bar. Who am I kidding? 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Maybe you get to go to church on Sunday for what, 30 cents a day." And here, stay with me. My mind casted back to one of my first managers. This was an office job, not IT. One of my first managers, bless him, was a really great guy, and his name was Grover Freckleton,
Really?
which sounds like a Simpsons character.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm at Grover Freckleton, wherever in the universe you are. I'm calling you out. You were a good manager. You were good for my young career. And when we were griping collectively about some corporate thing or just, grousing, Grover would say, remember, it's all indoors, no heavy lifting. And he's right. So shout out to all those people that do run San Angelo bars or shovels and till the
Mhm.
land and do hard work. We're grateful for you,
Absolutely.
but we don't want to do it. So anyway, tools, I'd rather not see that. It's still in my garage. I need to go sell it to someone because it's traumatic. But anyway, awesome. So, write us at podcast at alt-cio.com and tell us a tool you'd never like to see again. And, if it's JavaScript, that's fine too, right?
Yeah.
We'll do IT tools someday. All right. Awesome. Well, hey, that's the banter segment. This week we're going to have the AI Meltdown segment again. So we'll be right back after the awesome segment bumper music for the AI Meltdown.
It's the AI Meltdown. The AI Meltdown.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world. As a reminder, you can always email us at podcast at alt-cio.com. We're sponsored by Alt CIO Consulting. I'm David Wheat. I run and lead Alt CIO Consulting. Happy to have you on the podcast. Today, I want to talk about this article that was in the New York Times. Speaking of, first, I want to tell you about, I had a new AI encounter on Spotify.
Spotify DJ.
Yeah, do you listen to Spotify much music?
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen the new AI DJ feature? Have you checked it out?
Yeah. Yeah. I've tried it. It's pretty fun.
It is pretty fun. So everyone on Spotify, there's a new AI DJ. So it's not a real human being that's talking to you, and they introduce songs and introduce a genre, and then they play several songs. Then they kind of come back DJ style and say, hey, closing out that, and let's go play some of your hits from last summer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like my AI DJ voice. I'm sure there's only one, but it's like a very chill, hip, laid back, kind of perfect DJ voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very pleasant. Very, yeah, exactly. Stereotypical DJ
Yeah. Only not like the
in a
loud
good,
overtalk
yeah.
drive time DJ. Very laid back, very chill. He says your name. Does he say your name?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, David,
Yep.
welcome back. I'm going to play some of your, here's some things you were listening to in 2018. Weird stuff like that.
He's also a little bit ornery because I played it and it played some country music and some rock music. And my son has a bit of a Spotify family account, and my son logged in with his, and I said, hey, what does yours do? And he hadn't listened to any music on it in a couple of years. It's just not his thing. And it played like sound effect of crickets, like 2 minutes of crickets chirping. Oh, okay.
I want to talk about that because first of all, I'm pretty impressed with it. Like the voice sounds like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my antenna are way up. It sounds like a human being. So, but just real quickly, what I've noticed is like I've got some music I play like more for like going to sleep. I don't really want to listen to that when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to listen to what DJ is called DJ X, which is kind of, by the way, also could be a bad guy in either the Marvel or DC universe. I'm not sure, but it sounds like it
Yes.
could be. So maybe not so scary. DJ X. Uh, but he doesn't always get it right. And there's a DJ button, and the DJ button doesn't just say skip this song. It means like I don't want to listen to this playlist.
Yeah. You're on the
Dear
wrong
DJ
track with
X,
this.
yeah, go get me. And every once in a while, he sounds just a little bit hurt or miffed.
Yeah.
He'd say, okay, not digging the vibe. I get it. Let's move on to something else. And I'm like, so I'm not joking. Every once in a while, I'll reach for the DJ button. I'm like, I've already probably done this enough. I might hurt his feelings. And I don't know, like, I know that's a little bit of it, but I literally I've already skipped 3 genres and I think he's going to get mad at me. Like
Yeah,
the artificial intelligence DJ.
I'm just being really hard to please right now.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, pretty impressed with it. Good job, Spotify. Very realistic. But when we talk about this human AI interchange, which I'm kind of hinting at, like our brains are going to pretty quickly adapt to like, oh yeah, you're you're my partner in music. You know, you're my curator of music, and I kind of like you. I like your voice.
Yeah.
I'm getting to know you, right?
Yeah. Like my
Yeah.
kids will say, like mostly my daughter who's younger will say, ask Siri or Alexa, some question or what time it is. And Alexa or Siri will answer, thanks, Siri. Thanks, Alexa.
Yeah, you're that generation is really gonna think of them as their friend and companion.
But
But
that's going to protect us. So they won't get mad at it. The AIs won't get mad at us, right? Because we're being
yeah,
polite.
yeah, right. Yeah, we're friends. Why would you destroy me? We've gone
I'm
through
more
so
than
much
just a
here.
battery.
Anyway, good job on DJX, and that's just the first topic on the AI meltdown, which isn't a meltdown, as you'll see. The second topic is as we talk about scary things that AI can do. One of the really chilling effects that we need to be aware about AI is that it may save your life by correctly diagnosing your cancer diagnosis. Wait, that's not scary. Cancer is, but
That sounds
this is
really
from an
good.
art. Yeah, this is from an article in the New York Times recently. I don't have the date on it, but oh no, it's March 5th. March 5th, 2023. It's called Using AI to Detect Breast Cancer That Doctors Miss. Pause. You're telling me that doctors miss stuff, Darrick?
Shocking.
I'm stunned to be learning this now.
Yeah, but humans are not perfect in their memory or,
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I'm
yeah.
going to read through just some highlights, and then we'll talk about it. So, using AI to detect breast cancer, and the kind of the subheadline is Hungary has become a major testing ground for AI software to spot cancer as doctors debate whether the technology will replace them in medical jobs. Here's a couple of little excerpts, not to read the whole article, but it says that recently two radiologists had previously said that an x-ray they were looking at showed no signs that the patient had breast cancer. But when they ran it through AI circled a couple of areas in red that they hadn't seen that had been flagged by AI as potentially cancerous. And this doctor sort of surprisingly said, "This is something like I missed that," and they ordered the woman back for a biopsy, and that hadn't happened yet. That's thing one. Um, the AI technology is showing an impressive ability to spot cancer at least as well as human radiologists, according to early results, which is one of the most tangible signs to date of how AI can improve public health. Next sentence that I'm jumping around a little bit. This is really key. This is what we have to remember about human beings. This next sentence. Radiologists often spend hours every day in a dark room looking at hundreds of images and making life-altering decisions for patients. If I forget, bring me back to that sentence when I finish the article, Darrick. And a doctor says it's so easy to miss tiny lesions. A doctor admits it's not possible to stay focused. Good, almost done. Um, Last year, after a test on more than 275,000 breast cancer cases, the AI software matched the performance of human radiologists when acting as a second reader of mammography scans. It also cut down on radiologists' workloads by at least 30%. In other results from the Hungarian clinic last year, the technology increased the cancer detection rate by 13% because more malignancies were identified. Um, So, a skeptic, wrapping up, final sentence from the paragraph, then we'll talk. Wrapping up, a doctor who was intrigued but maybe a little bit skeptical pulled out some of his most challenging scans from the past several years and ran it through this software uh, in which he had known radiologists miss the signs of developing cancer. And this is the quote: in every instance, the AI spotted it. So this guy went back in
Wow.
time. And then, real quickly, they're saying the quote is an AI plus doctor should not replace doctor alone, but an AI should not replace the doctor. So,
Right.
and real quickly, the way they do this is that they train AI. They do take real scans and they train AI on how to spot it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it
we need to
learned
remind
from
people
humans.
that's how these models work on real stuff. So that's the end of their article. What are your impressions? And then we can riff on it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great point of these are things that software is really, really good at of repetitive tasks. And like you said, learning a model from things that are sort of sort of fuzzy, right? That we as a human can say that looks like cancer, that doesn't. A person with a lot of training can do that, but we can't really make it a rule. But we can train AI to say, hey, this one looked like cancer, this one didn't. And with repetition, it can do that. And yeah, it gets really good at it. I don't know. I used to watch the show House a lot and seeing all the human element of medical diagnostics and fictional show, but you see how many things are relying on a person's memory, a person's, like in this article, a person's attention span, all things that are fallible. And if you can have an assistant that has a near perfect memory, they're not going to miss an article. They've read all the articles. They're not going to have a bias toward the thing they just read. They're going to have all that history, and yeah, they're not going to have attention span problems. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah. All well said. House example as well. So I got a lot to say, but let's go back to last podcast episode where we talked about how the labor pool is shrinking dramatically and that hiring is going to be, that applies to every career you can think of, including radiology.
Yep.
So if we can increase radiologist productivity without worse outcomes by giving them a digital assistant that can, maybe it does preliminary scans and then the doctors review them and look for, or maybe it's the opposite.
Right.
We're going to take that. The second thing, and the thing I asked you to call me back about, like, first of all, two things. In every profession, there are skill levels and experience levels. And most of us, when we go to a radiologist, have never met them before in our life. We just got assigned a radiologist. Could be the best scan reading radiologist in 5 counties, or could be someone who's prone to look at their phone while they're looking at radio. I don't know. But
Right.
all human beings have gradients of expertise and quality and concern and care. So not to be too morose, but if one of our loved ones came to us and said, hey, I've got something going on medically, and they're telling me that I can either have a doctor read my scans or a doctor plus this new, whatever it's called, technology, what should I do?
Yeah. Why
Right.
would you pass up that extra set of eyes?
100% out of 100% of us say, hey, at least trust the technology. It couldn't hurt, right? Like,
Right. Right.
that way you don't. And by the way, think about that day reading hundreds of scans in a dark room. Imagine being the 100th scan read right
Yeah.
before picking up the kids from school and taking them to soccer and going. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And we want AI to be like, I'm not tired. Like,
I can do this all
you know what?
day.
You go home. I'll look at the rest of these scans all night and through midnight and 2 a.m. And when you come back, I'll give you the results. We'll have you audit them. You look for other
Yeah.
things, right?
I'll give you the ones I'm only 75% sure about to give a closer look.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think this is a great topic to talk about AI as human assistant and human productivity booster and human quality checker, as opposed to replacing humans because they hate us, because
Right.
because someone's not saying thank you to Siri or Alexa.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I really think some of this is AI has been the very branding of AI is almost harmful to it, right? That if it's in order to sound bigger and even more impressive than it is, we call it artificial intelligence when really we have different skills. We have a research assistant that can read all of this data for you. That's sort of a facet of AI. This imaging side of it, where it can learn to, we can teach it how to read images. That's a very specific skill. It's trained. It's very specific. It doesn't sound
It's
scary when you say,
repeatable. Yeah.
"Yeah, hey, I want some image recognition software all day." I don't
Yeah.
want artificial intelligence to be my doctor, though, right? So this
Yeah.
branding
The
is
branding is
interesting.
awful. Yeah. You're exactly right. And we talked about the hype cycle of the media journalists who don't know anything but love to grab clicks and headlines, like, will AI destroy the world? And
Right.
as we'll just say it again here on the pod, we're bullish on AI, but not naive. We'll probably have to put some guardrails around. But remember, if AI starts to spin off the rails, Darrick, we'll just unplug it,
Unplug it.
unplug the server it runs on. And if that doesn't work, we'll bomb the nearest electrical substation and the generator. So
We should be good.
yeah. And then they won't be able to read any more scans. Well, that would be bad. All right, perfect. All right, that's the AI not meltdown segment. That's the AI could save you or your loved one's life. Let's rejoice about technology and the bright people who figure out how to use it and doctors who
Yep.
care. Awesome. Okay, well, next up, the big idea segment. Speaking of really smart people, we're going to talk about super smart people in the big ideas segment. Those aren't me and Darrick. No. And right back after the bumper segment music. Bye, everybody. Come right back.
Time for the segment called The Big Idea. The Big Idea. The Big Idea. Serious topic, but we'll still have fun. We'll still have fun with the big idea. Better IT, hands in the air cause we like IT, that's great. I'm not a famous rapper, but I can help you with technology. I can show you how to pick software, I can show you how to be secure. I can take apart your broken stuff and then put it back together much better. Zalt CIO makes your IT rock. Your IT rock. Your IT rock. Time for the segment called The Big Idea. The Big Idea. The Big Idea.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the last IT podcast in the world. Time for the big idea segment where we talk about super smart people and what they have to say about people like Darrick. Hey, Darrick, what's going on? And by the way, Darrick, if you first time listener, Darrick is a software developer, software architect, software engineer. We
Yep.
should sometime go through the lineage of I'm a programmer,
Programmer, coder,
architect,
architect,
engineer. I like
consultant.
engineer.
Yeah.
It's software engineer. Anyway, so what are the smart people saying about you and your kind, Darrick?
Yeah. So there was an article on making the rounds on LinkedIn a while back, and it was a post from McKinsey Consulting, the vaunted McKinsey, which we can have lots of conversations about their
When you
product.
get done talking, I'm gonna go nuts
Yeah.
on McKinsey.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, big consulting firm, and they published this paper on how they have figured out how to measure software developers' productivity. Just, for all the effort all the industry has been making the last 30, 50 years, McKinsey has figured it out. This article got a lot of pushback from people that in my industry that do what I do, because it revealed a lot of lack of understanding of what software developers do and how our productivity is measured and what adds value. So just to pull out a couple of quotes here, compared with other critical business functions such as sales or customer operations, software development is perennially undermeasured. Now, I've worked in this industry a lot, and you've worked in as a managerial role, so I'd be curious your take on that. But there's a lot of measures of what we do. There's a lot of metrics and schedules that we have, and having worked in the field, it seems like there's a lot more metrics of what we do than there are other knowledge worker positions. So
For
that
sure.
was
First of all, the premise, what you're saying is not based on history and reality.
right.
Like they've invented that we need to measure software productivity.
Yeah,
or
they've
software
discovered
developers.
this problem out of a real lack of industry knowledge.
I remember back in the day, not me, I hated this, where management would say, okay, everyone's got to fill out, even if you're salaried, you don't need a timesheet, like tracking time to projects. Just the simple, like this software development project or this architectural project or infrastructure project, put your estimated hours, even though you're not paid by them, which was just a real pain in the rear. And developers were always being asked. That was way back in the day.
Right.
Then you got in the modern era of Agile and Scrum, and that's it's story points and sprint planning, and it's nothing but measurement.
Right.
In fact, you're spending half your time doing Agile and Scrum things so that you can go code. But anyway, with you. there's been tons of measurement for software developers, and to your point, probably less so than on departments like sales and accounting and
Right.
customer service.
Right. And I think those
I mean, more so than those
yeah.
departments. Yeah.
And I think those specialties, they do have hard metrics. Like sales has very concrete metrics on actual productivity. Did they actually sell a product? They have very specific metrics on that. What they don't measure is how did the salesman spend his day, right? What that's they really care about the bottom line result, not how you got there.
Right.
And which I think is an interesting contrast. The other quote that they had, that I think this is the one that elicited a lot of reaction from developers that I saw, was this. They found productivity gaps when they did their analysis, or as consultants do. They surveyed and saw all the problems that everybody else had. They said, for example, one company found that its most talented developers were spending excessive time on non-coding activities, such as design sessions or managing interdependencies across teams. In response, the company changed its operating model and clarified roles and responsibilities to enable those high-value developers to do what they do best: code. So that quote is sort of what got this article affectionately named the Code Monkey Code article from McKinsey. Um, the clear view of this consulting firm is that a developer is not adding value unless they're typing. We are just really measured by words per minute.
Syntax, typing syntax.
Type code, crank out volumes of code. And yeah, it's just, as someone who's worked in industry, it's just a bafflingly immature take of what software developers do, where you find value. Everywhere in my career, the high value developers should be doing exactly what they just listed out: design sessions, interdependencies, looking for potential problems, architecture, finding the right way to build it,
problem solving, designing, going up to the whiteboard and saying,
Yeah.
what if we did this? Nope, that doesn't work. What brainstorming,
Exactly.
collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And finding the right tools to use, because we live in a world where we're not having to write all the code from scratch. A lot of it's finding the right libraries and tools, and in the cloud environment, platform services to use to not write code and not own that code forever, but to plug into the right tools. And it's baffling that they still think in 2023 that this is what developers should be doing.
Yeah. Let me just do a little bit of an explainer for some of our maybe less technical audience. So when Darrick talks about libraries and services, you've got good ones. I'll give you the oldest one I can think of on the earth. Like, instead of writing a dialogue for printing something, you go find a library someone else wrote, you import it into your code, and you call it, and it does the how many pages would you like, and would you like to do color, and you didn't write from scratch a driver level interface, for Windows and for Mac and for Linux and all these things. Someone else did that, and you absorbed it because there's no value in that.
Right.
And it just works over and over and over. Maybe you've got some other good examples about, and like you said, your point was you've got to go maybe find those things, or maybe suddenly you need to have an interface to UPS or FedEx or Amazon.com or whatever, and you've never done that before. Researching a library of someone else's code that you can reuse is value added work, but not typing in syntax.
Exactly. And it's, rather than you typing in and owning thousands of lines of code, say for a database access driver, you find a tool that already does that, and you can plug into that, and now your development is 10 or 100x faster because you've found the right tool to use to make it faster.
Yeah. Hey, this is kind of an old acronym, Darrick, and we haven't pre-talked about this, but JAD, J-A-D, do you joint application development?
Doesn't ring a bell.
So it might have been a buzzword that lasted 5 minutes and came and went, but the concept lives on, which is and so you and I are in corporate IT, so we're not coding the Amazon AWS platform. We're solving business problems as coders and as designers and architects. So joint application development or design means a coder is not coding because he's sitting with a business process person with a problem and literally becoming conversational in their business process. in order to help them solve the problem, because people in business processes are pretty bad at designing code. They'll tell you where their pain point is. They'll try to design it, but they don't think like a computer software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that problem and asking them questions and designing it and talking about like just business processes, not writing code like, our statement project from back in the day, right? Like tell me about
Right.
that process and then what happens and who does that and who pushes a button and what are the pain points and what are the manual touch points. A developer who's going to help write a solution is adding, in my opinion, from a style, tons of value. That is high level software engineering if you can talk to people and code.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's exactly right. That's the people, that's a lot of software developers are not good listeners, right? And so that's actually a skill that you want to have, as someone that can go listen to the customer or listen to the user and hear what they're saying and not just build the thing that you want to build, right?
Yeah.
That's a flaw in our industry, and that does exist. And that's actually, their metrics are actually the inverse of that. These metrics would elevate the developer that doesn't listen, doesn't look for a better way, doesn't know about existing libraries, here's a vague sentence about a problem, and pounds at a keyboard for 8 hours.
Yeah. Not to mention collaboration with other software engineers. So maybe McKinsey, and I'm going to just crush them in a minute, just for the record. I have no tolerance for these high level. And by the way, whoever's listening to this podcast, you know how you can't afford McKinsey or Bain. You cannot afford them. They are unbelievably expensive. Real quickly, or riff on this. Essentially, and I'm stereotyping, but it's generally true. They hire really smart kids right out of the Ivy League and elite schools, and they christen them management consultants. And I could be wrong. Hey, at McKinsey, happy to have your tech wing, a representative on the podcast, but I'm laying 100 of my own bucks that the people who wrote this article have never coded for a career, nor, they just had a bunch of overconfident opinions about how to solve a problem. And people eat that up. People will pay
Mm-hmm.
them millions of dollars to have them say weird stuff that is not informed in reality. And I'm scratching my head, So, hey, CEOs, if you're out there, like, don't waste your money. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
There's, and you and I, we both do consulting. It's not that it's consulting is the problem. We're
yeah.
both with consultant. You're a consultant that you do domain work. I do domain work as a consultant. We build stuff for people. We do exactly what we're talking about. We listen to what people's problems are, apply technology to it, figure out the right way to do it. But
And by
yeah,
domain, we mean I went into consulting after a long series of experience doing the thing. And now I advise people how to do things. You went through normal corporate coding roles and software engineering roles before you got to a point in your career where you could flex and do it for multiple clients and work through an agency. So
yep.
it's grounded. The first important distinction is it's not grounded in school, which is not real life. It's
Right.
grounded in real life. That's the first distinction on consultants that bring value.
That's a great point.
Secondly, we probably charge 100th of what McKinsey does. We're a value. We're a deal. We're not
we're
that cheap.
bargain.
We're expensive because we're good at what we do, but we're not McKinsey expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not working in the world of theory, which is kind of a riff on the second thing. Like we've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and we can tell people how to do it or advise them on it. It's from a basis of experience for sure. Yeah, so not all consulting is the same, but man, people like just real quickly. I've had a Bain encounter. I've been at a company that brought Bain in to look at a shared services model, which included IT. And they were in the same building as me and never once asked me a question about the current state of IT.
Yeah.
So two things. They did I will say this, these Bain and McKinsey, they do have access to really good data sets.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. They've got pretty good data. Whether they can interpret it based on a real world, question mark.
Right.
When these Bain consultants were in my sphere, they were in the same building and ignoring me. They were easy to spot. I'll tell. So everyone listening to the podcast, here's how you can spot one of these top tier consulting firms of Ivy Leaguers that are all sub 30 years old, probably is who you're going to encounter. This is tip number one. They're under 30. Tip number two, look down and check out their shoes and see if they look like they were bought in a major metropolitan area for $300 a long way from where you're sitting today. I was like, man, these shoes are like not shoes that I see at DSW or Payless shoes. That's for sure. um, yeah. And I'm riffing here and I'm probably being unfair to, there's probably someone listening who's got, kids working for Bain or McKinsey or whatever, but they were young. They were incredibly smart, no question. But smart and applied smart plus experience are two very different things. And I think they were good with data. I think they
Yeah.
had good data sets that they could mine and give to you, but that's different from talking about your strategy in real terms.
Right. It's the example of, and this article is a great place of that. They have lots of data, lots of analytics, lots of data to make the argument they're making. This is also sort of the old statistical joke about you can point to teams and say, gosh, whenever you played your backup quarterback in the fourth quarter, you won by a lot.
You should do
So
that
you
more.
should do that all the time. Just not understanding the why or how you get there.
Yeah, correlation is not causation.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. So McKinsey, Darrick Johnson, did you want to say anything else about that?
Oh, the other thing I want to say is one of the things that they suggest and recommend is they do point to a lot of metrics, and they're all, I think, fairly bad metrics. They want to measure developers based on lines of code produced. Again, you're rewarding a developer that writes the thing the longest possible, not the one that finds a good library, writes it more compact, writes it in a testable fashion or readable fashion. Number of commits and how often you release code. And how often you release code is not a metric of how productive you are. There's good reasons to deploy every day. There's good reasons to deploy once a quarter. It just depends on your maturity as a software organization and what your ability to stamp out bugs is, right?
Yeah, by all means, let's encourage developers to be measured by releasing something very often, introducing churn into a stable product, and probably causing disruption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of these metrics, code volumes, how often you commit code, are very controllable, right? If you want to game those metrics as a developer, and the bad developers will do that, if I'm measured by how many times I commit code, I'm going to do lots of very small commits. Now, sometimes that's a good thing to do for its own merit. But you really are opening yourself up to have these metrics gamed and make your product worse.
Yeah, let's say we measured physicists by how long their equations were.
Mm-hmm.
Equals MC squared. E equals MC squared gets an F minus minus.
Yep.
And with software engineering, as you know, the more elegant, and by elegant we mean less lines of code, the better.
Exactly.
These guys wouldn't know code if it fell on them, obviously.
Yeah.
For sure. By the way, quick story from my career. Back in my early career, I was in an accounting department before I was in IT, and there were adding machines with tape. So you're banging out numbers. And there was a guy who occasionally, older gentleman, he would get up from his desk at the end of the day and he would pull the tape out to see how long it was. And he would look around the office. This sounds like I'm quoting the show The Office, but this was my real life. He would pull it, be 6 or 7 feet long, and he'd look around very proud and he'd say, I'd say that's a pretty good day's work. And my brain, because it couldn't help itself, it didn't say it out loud. I thought, unless you're just doing 1 + 1 over and over and over.
Couldn't do any of that in your head.
But that's the same metaphor for like lines of code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever's ticker tape is the longest at the end of the day from the adding machine is the best accountant. Done.
Yeah. There you go.
McKinsey,
Whoever lawyer writes the longest brief, not the one that wins the case, wins the appeal.
Yeah, McKinsey, free tip, write like 10,000 words on the whole measuring tape thing for accounting, and then, sell it for $1 million, and I'll just take, 1% royalties on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's frustrating to see, as you did, like be deep in your career and know what you're talking about and have the smartest people in the world. And I'm air quoting if you're listening, if you're only audio, I'm air quoting smartest people in the world, like say, something so wrong and unintuitive and not informed by reality.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right. Very good. Well, I think that's the end of the big idea segment, which leads us as we're done, except for the wrap up where we talk about what we learned today. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Well, let's see. I did learn that I probably should never apply for a job at McKinsey because I've probably burned that bridge today.
By the way, you would have to buy about $1,000 of wardrobe just for the interview,
Yeah, I'm probably aged out of it, and I didn't go to the right college, so
and the shoes are $300 just by themselves.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. I learned that I just assumed farm people had a name for every shovel, like go get the Miller shovel, or but like I just thought you guys would have,
Pitchforks. Yes, there's a whole panoply of pitchforks and
and you could
newer
like
forks and hay forks and pitchforks and yeah.
but shovels are just like the heavy shovel and the light shovel.
There's probably a name. Maybe somebody more knowledgeable than me knows it, but yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a San Angelo. My metal bar had a name. San Angelo. By the way, what happened in San Angelo where they had to like come up with metal bars as the main tool? Like, yeah,
we had
I
a
don't
big mispour of concrete.
right. Then they had to make 50 San Angelo bars, and that's how then they got the name. I don't know. The world is weird. McKinsey's weird. AI is probably not the weirdest thing we talked about today. Awesome. Very good. Well, that's it. Signing out. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.